It's Little Bird and Jesus.
Bible stories for bedtime.
And car time. And playtime.
And anytime you want to hear how much Jesus loves you in all this world.
Even little birds.
Hi, I'm Pastor Sarah at St. Paul Lutheran Church in Davenport, Iowa. Welcome to this podcast where we tell stories.
Stories told just for kids. And kids at heart.
We're here together to hear about Jesus and his friend Little Bird as they have all kinds of adventures and meet all kinds of amazing people. Well, podcast friends, happiest of days to you. I hope you are doing well. Jesus lived a long time ago, but the people a long time ago were a lot like people today. They were sometimes really great to each other, kind and friendly, but they sometimes got in arguments, and they sometimes hurt each other. They were, like all of us, imperfect and treated each other imperfectly. So Jesus spent a lot of time teaching his followers how to treat each other and how to live in a radically new kind of way. It's something all of us, big and little, need to learn. So here is episode 7 of season 3, Little Bird and Jesus, and a lesson on revenge. It was a lovely summer day. The sun was shining, the sky was blue. Little Bird was hanging out in the courtyard at Jesus' house. They were there for a rest, in between all the travels. It was nice to be back in a familiar place, the tree where Little Bird grew up with all of her friends. Mary, Jesus' mom, would always put out a bowl of seeds on the windowsill for Little Bird. They were her favorite seeds, and Little Bird felt so loved that Mary cared enough to do that for her. Well, on this particular day, Little Bird had just woken up from an afternoon nap. She stretched out her wings with a big yawn. She blinked her eyes awake, and then she heard a little rumble. What was that sound?
Grumble, grumble, grumble.
Little Bird realized that it was coming from her own belly. Her stomach was growling. She was so hungry. As Little Bird thought about what she wanted to eat, Little Bird remembered where she was, at Jesus' house. And she remembered that yummy bowl of seeds that Mary would always put out for her. So she flew down from her tree branch to eat some seeds. Except when she got close, she saw something terrible, horrible. A mouse was eating her food. A little gray mouse had sat himself right in the middle of the bowl. His cheeks were full of seeds, and he had one seed in his hands as he was nibbling away. The seeds were half gone from her bowl. Her seeds were half gone. Little Bird was so angry. How dare that mouse eat her seeds? He was the worst meanie mouse of all time. And so she flew down toward him, tweeting out her loudest, meanest words. They were so mean, I don't even want to translate them from Sparrow here to you in this podcast. So you just have to trust me that in Sparrow, those were words that Little Bird's mom would not have been proud of her using. The mouse heard the sounds of Little Bird, this angry sparrow, flying toward him and ran away fast into a little hole in the ground.
Squeak, squeak, squeak.
It was gone, thankfully, but it had taken so many of Little Bird's seeds with him. Little Bird was so mad she stomped around the bowl. As she ate the remaining seeds, she tried to come up with a plan to get back at that mouse. She wanted him to suffer. Maybe she could get some honey and put it at the bottom of the bowl, and when he came back for more seed, his feet would stick to it. No, he might actually like that sweet honey. That wasn't a good idea. Maybe she could get Mary to bring out a bowl of really hot water and they could pour it down into the mouse hole. But that seemed maybe a bit too much, even for that mean mouse. As Little Bird finished up the last of the seeds remaining in her bowl, she came up with a really good plan. She just needed to prepare. First, she needed to find a walnut shell or something she could use as a kind of bowl or container. So she spent the afternoon scouring the yard until she found this perfect little walnut shell. Next, she sat at the window and watched until Mary left for the market. When Mary was gone, Little Bird snuck into the kitchen and very carefully took the lid off of the jar that held the spiciest of the dried peppers that Mary would use for her soups. The lid fell off with a clang, and as soon as Little Bird smelled the spicy pepper, she sneezed. And then she took a deep breath and held it and carefully dipped the walnut shell into the powdered spice and lifted out as much of it as she could carry. Very carefully, she lifted the shell with her talons and tucked it into a hidden spot in the trees. And so the next morning, Little Bird watched as Mary lovingly put out the bowl of seeds for Little Bird. Little Bird knew that this was her chance. Now I will get back at that mouse, she thought. This will be the last time he steals my seeds. And so, as soon as Mary walked away, Little Bird took her walnut shell full of chili powder and carefully flew over toward the bowl of food. She set it down carefully right next to the bowl. She wanted to get a few bites of seeds herself before she ruined it with a strong and spicy chili powder. But as she did, she heard footsteps. Familiar footsteps. It was Jesus walking toward her. Little Bird hopped in front of her shell full of super hot spicy powder, hoping that Jesus wouldn't see it. "Hi, Jesus," Little Bird said, pretending like everything was totally normal. "Good morning, Little Bird," he said. "How are your seeds this morning?" "So delicious," she responded. "They're my favorite, and Mary always gives me so much, sometimes more than I can even eat. But I love them. They're all mine." Jesus leaned his head to one side, his forehead wrinkled. He could tell that something was funny about Little Bird. "Little Bird," he said, "you are acting funny. What's going on?" Little Bird smiled, not moving, not wanting him to see what she was doing. "Me?" she said. "Acting funny? No way." But then Jesus saw it. "Little Bird," he said, "what is that behind you? What are you trying to hide?" Little Bird denied it. Nothing, it's nothing, just a shell from the yard." But Jesus leaned down and picked up that shell full of spicy powder. He lifted it up to get a closer look at it, and then he sneezed. Achoo! He said, "Little Bird, why do you have this shell full of my mom's spiciest pepper mix? What are you going to do with it? It is so strong. It could really hurt you to eat this much spice. It's a lot even for humans. Was it for you or for someone else?" Jesus thought a minute and then asked, "Little Bird, you weren't going to give it to another creature on purpose, were you?" Little Bird hung her head, feeling so guilty. "Yes, Jesus," she said. She couldn't hide anything from him. "I was going to sprinkle it on my seeds, because this little mouse was stealing my seeds from me." As she thought about it, she got more and more angry. But he deserves it. He took my seeds. That pepper spice wouldn't hurt him that bad. He is a terrible mouse, and he did something terrible to me, so I am going to do something terrible back to him. Jesus looked at her with such disappointment in his face, and he said, "Oh, little bird, I know how much it must have hurt you to see that mouse eat your food, but there is another way to respond. Do you remember what I said once when I was talking to my friends?" Little bird thought about it and mumbled, "Yeah, something about an eye for an eye." "That's it, little bird," Jesus said. "I told people that the law says something like an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, meaning that if someone does something, the punishment should be equal to the thing that was done. So if someone did something small, a small punishment is fair. If it's something big, a big punishment. And this is okay in court. But usually people take this to mean that if you do something mean to me, then it's fair for me to do something mean back to you. It's taking revenge. You hurt me, so it's okay for me to hurt you. But, little bird, do you think that's the best way to live in the world? Do you think that's how I want you and others to live?" Little bird shook her head no. And then Jesus kept on talking. He said, "That's right. So I told those humans when I was teaching them, I said, don't hit back at all. If someone strikes you, stand there. If someone drags you into court and sues you for the shirt off your back, wrap it up like a present and give it to them. If someone asks for help, say yes. Share everything you have." And then Jesus just looked at little bird, waiting for her to take it in, to figure out what this might mean for her. Little bird said, "So you are saying that the best plan is not for me to poison that little mouse with chili powder to get back at him for eating my seeds?" Jesus nodded. "Yes, and..." Little bird sometimes wished she had a different best friend, one who didn't expect so much out of her. So she said, "And instead, I could share my seeds with him, because there are, after all, more than enough." Jesus nodded. "You got it, little bird. Go the extra mile. Do even more kindness than you thought possible. Followers of mine are the ones who walk away from the fight and do something kind instead." And so Jesus took that shell full of spice, and little bird flew over to the little hole in the ground. She sang a kind little song down toward the mouse.
Treat, 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 treat.
Soon, very cautiously, the little mouse peeked his head out of the hole. He looked nervous and scared, his nose twitching and his whiskers shaking.
Squeak, squeak.
Little bird said to him, "Would you like to eat some of my seeds with me? There is more than enough, and I would like to share with you." Though, podcast friends, this was not easy for her to say. She was still a little bit mad. The mouse squeaked again.
Squeak, squeaky.
Yes, thank you. It's been so dry, and I haven't been able to get my usual seeds from the garden. I'm sorry that I took the seeds from you yesterday. I didn't realize that they were your seeds. I thought maybe that nice woman set them out for all of us creatures." Little bird felt her anger melting away. There were more than enough seeds, and Mary did care about all the creatures, even the mice, even the sparrows. Jesus was right. The best thing to do is to be kind in all circumstances. And so that morning, a little sparrow,
Treat, 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 treat.
and a little mouse
Squeak, squeak, squeak.
ate a lovely breakfast of seeds in the sunshine, while Jesus sat nearby, eating his own breakfast, happy to see some new friends where there once were enemies. Well, friends, have you ever been saving something yummy to eat and then someone in your house eats it instead? Or have you been playing with a toy and then your sibling snatches it out of your hands? Or maybe a kid at your school says or does something mean. And sometimes when these things happen, I get mad. Maybe you do. Maybe you snatch that toy back and yell, "That's mine." Or maybe someone bonks you, and so you bonk them back, and then a big fight happens. Well, that lesson Jesus teaches Little Bird is an important one for all of us. As followers of Jesus, we get to be really brave and do a very strong thing, something that takes a big heart. We get to walk away and decide not to fight back. And on our best days, we can be kind instead. It takes some practice, but as Jesus people, letting go of that need to get back at people or to hurt others because they hurt us, it's an important way that we show love to others. So this week, let's practice being brave and strong and kind like Little Bird. And if someone does something mean, walk away. You can tell a grown-up. It's always a good idea to tell a grown-up, especially if it's something big. And no matter what, be kind. Oh, and if you want to, especially because it's almost winter, it's a good day to put out some seeds for those creatures outside, the birds and the squirrels, and maybe even the mice. Thanks for listening to this episode of Little Bird and Jesus, and have a great day.
Now flap your little wings. Sing a little song.
And remember that to Jesus,
You will always belong.
Thanks for listening to Little Bird and Jesus, a podcast of St. Paul Lutheran Church in Davenport, Iowa. For more information on St. Paul, visit us at stpaulqc.org. Come visit us again next week as Little Bird continues her journey.